The first year that I had a business, my business made, it could be easy to get disheartened. It could be, but I never did. In the second year of business, I made, which, might I say, like 5x the year before. So it was about year 3, so I knew what I had to do to get closer to that vision. Fast forward to 4th year in business, I went to go check my Stripe account, and I shit you not, I have just hit over $1 million. And if I pulled out all my journals, me right now would be like, oh my God, it actually worked in this really crazy way. You can implement this yourself because it fucking works. I am the embodiment of this. Hundreds of my clients will say to you it works. It just does. Hello, welcome back to another episode. I am very, 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 very excited about this one. This is a woo-woo / not woo-woo, because we know that woo-woo is actually usually backed by science, and we all love a good manifestation story. I personally do. And I think every time I hear one of these crazy stories, it activates something in me and it re-inspires me. And so I really wanted to share this with you because this might be one of my favorite, like, crazy universe stories. And I've been into this stuff for quite some time. And actually, there's an episode, I'll have to link it in the show notes. If you haven't listened, I think it's quite a long time ago, I had an episode that was called I'm Coming Out of the Closet. And that was my woo closet, my manifestation closet. And I think it took me a while to actually start talking about it because honestly, I was that person at the start of my personal growth journey and even all of my studies. I was very much of, I go to university, I have degrees, I need to see research, I need to see journal articles, I need to see proof. I was very analytical and I was very scientific. And it's just so interesting now looking back at my big ego that I was like, well, that doesn't sound scientific. So bleh. And because of, my upbringing and going to a Catholic school, I think I'd really rejected anything that was a bit spiritual. And it's just crazy to me now that there was once upon a time that I would have heard words like manifesting or God or universe or energy, whatever your language is. There was a time when I would have literally rolled my eyes, but I cannot deny, and I will not deny, and I teach it and I will preach it until the cows come home. Magic stuff happens when you actually understand the laws of the universe and the laws of the mind, because the more I studied manifestation, the more I understood the mind, and vice versa. The more I understood the mind, the more I understood how to manifest. And I have to say, I am quite the manifesting magician. I really, really am. And I think it's because I understand the mind. Obviously, I've been working in this industry for years, and I've watched hundreds now of my clients and people inside of my programs apply this stuff. And I get messages all the time that's like, Bree, you wouldn't believe this? And I'm like, no, I actually would. It's so cool. But anyway, I wanted to share the coolest manifestation. It's actually a money manifestation story because I really just want to share it and for it to reignite something in you. And I also want to share exactly how I manifested it, exactly what I was writing in my journal, because I was following a script that was given to me by my first mentor, who is the godfather of manifestation, the late Bob Proctor. I want to share with you exactly what he taught me, which is exactly what I did and is exactly what I created in a very specific, wild way. So to give you a little bit of that context, when I first stumbled across my very first mentor, I didn't know much about him, to be honest. I just got sold on like a sales call with some guy who was like, and I was probably the ideal person for this sales call because I was really unhappy in my job. I knew I was meant for more. I was frustrated because I'd done the degrees. I still hadn't found my thing. But I just knew there was something, and I was dreaming of something very similar actually to what I do with my life right now. It was this dream. My reality now was once this thing that I was dreaming of, but I honestly just had so much lack of self-belief. I had no belief. And so I thought that I'm a teacher now. So what am I going to do? Anyway, I was the perfect person for this sales call because I was like down and out and I really was ready to give everything, something, just anything. I was like, whatever, this person's apparently got the solution. I will be the best student and I will do everything this guy says, whatever, take my money. And it was very, very scary, might I add, because I had never invested in myself ever. I'd never heard of personal development. I didn't read the self-help books. I actually didn't believe in spirituality or anything like that. I was probably very logical and like, if I want something, I'll just go get it. But I didn't really think of the energetics or anything like that. So when I signed up and it was $10,000, which at the time was a crazy amount to spend on your personal development on something that has absolutely no quote return. At that time, I didn't see what the return could be. And we were saving for a house. It was a whole thing. I was too scared to tell Paul. Anyway, I signed up. I was absolutely shitting myself. And then when I got into the program and this old man started talking about universe and God and all of this, I was like, oh, I have literally been sold up shit creek and now I have no paddle and now I am $10,000 no better off. And so I was like, oh, but there was something in me that just, I don't know, I just always resonated with Bob Proctor. And the more I listened to him, the more I was like, oh, it just makes so much sense. It felt so right. And so like I said, I wanted to be the best student. And I was like, I'm just going to do everything he says for this whole year because it was a 1-year program. Well, actually, it was a 6-month program, but then you had to repeat the first 6 months again because repetition, which I now know, is how we reprogram the subconscious and how we manifest. So I was doing exactly what he said for a whole year, following it to a T. And I was getting up before I went to school. I was doing the work. I was doing the journaling, the exact prompt that I'm going to share with you in a moment. And this is exactly what happened. So he said to me, the first most important thing is that you build the vision. You have to know what it is that you're going for. You have to know the vision and what it is you want. And it's not enough to be vague. It's not enough to say something really like, I want more money. You've got to be specific and you've got to paint a picture with your words. And so I actually found this part quite easy, which was really interesting because I was that person that was like, I don't know what I want. That was my story for years and years and years. I don't know what I want. I've done all these degrees. I've tried all these different things. I can't find my thing. I don't know what I want. And it wasn't until he was like, if you could have anything and the universe was conspiring to make it happen and you couldn't fail and you just got to dream, what would you wish for? Just play, just have fun. And all of a sudden I was going crazy in my journal. I was like, actually, I'd have a podcast, I'd work online and I'd help people and I'd teach the things that we've been missing in the school program. And I was like, and I'd write a book and I'd have this and I'd do this and it was flowing. And so the story that I didn't know what I wanted was actually bullshit. But where the money manifestation actually blows my brain, and I only discovered this literally in the last fortnight, was that the thing that I was writing down, because I had to be specific, was I am so happy and grateful now that I am so happy and grateful now that I make $250,000 per year working online, helping and serving women and teaching the things that were never taught at school. Like I had this whole thing. And for a whole year, I wrote the exact same thing. And it was like, it almost got to the point where I was like, this is a bit stupid. Like I'm literally just writing the same thing. But I did that for a whole year. And I can't tell you why I came up with the figure 250,000. I just thought, well, it's like double and a half what I make as a teacher. So that feels baller. But it also felt so far out of reach. Like I didn't have a business. I didn't know what I was really going to do. But I just was like, oh, well, that to me is like I've made it. So I was writing every single day. I am so happy and grateful now that. Now, a teaching moment for you here. That's what I want you to do. I want you to first build your vision, and then I want you to journal starting with that exact sentence. I am so happy and grateful now that. And you start writing as though it's in present tense, and you try to really lock into that energy, that feeling of happiness and gratitude. And so that, and I won't bore you right now because that's not the conversation of this episode, that actually is what programs the subconscious, and that's how we manifest. But that's not for today's episode. I might do another one later. For now, I just want you to build the vision and then write the sentence. And I know you're going to be like, why do I need to write the same thing? It feels ridiculous. It's not happening. It's not happening. That's what I did. And that's what I was thinking. It's not happening. It's not happening, but I'm going to keep writing it because that's what he said. And I'm going to put my ego aside and be a good damn student because this man has a result that I want and I don't. So I've got to put my ego aside and learn, right? So I kept doing it and it wasn't working. It wasn't working. And he said, you forget the how. Just forget the how and write it. Write it and write it and write it and write it. And honestly, I didn't really believe it at first, but I started to believe it. So anyway, I was writing every day for a year. I'm so happy and grateful now that my online business makes $250,000 a year and I can work anywhere in the world, traveling, blah, blah, blah. $250,000 a year, right? That was the number. That was the money. That was the money manifestation. You'll note it was pretty specific. It was very specific. It wasn't like I make more money now that I'm so happy and grateful now that I make more money. It was a very specific number. And I could see myself living this life where I was, in Bali and I was in Europe and all these things. I was watching it and seeing it as I was writing that sentence. And it's just one sentence. I'm so happy and grateful now that. So how did it play out? And this is what's wild and that I only realized in the last 2 weeks. So my business is coming up to, in fact, next week, maybe exactly a week from today at the time of recording, exactly 1 week from now, my business turns 4. And I thought that was pretty cool, right? So that's the side story of how I figured out this manifestation. My business is about to turn 4. Now, in my first year of business, and I've actually written the numbers down on my laptop in front of me so that I can share with you. And remember, in this first year, I was still a teacher. I had left very soon after I got my NLP training. I left teaching, but I had not really a lot of clients, but I'm still writing every single day. I'm so happy and grateful now that I make $250,000 a year. That's what I was writing. And at the same time, I was studying mindset. I was becoming an expert in all things mindset. And I was starting to realize why I was writing this all the time, right? So I was becoming more and more, this is actually making a lot of sense. So I'm still writing it. But the first year that I had a business, my business made $17,923. So you can imagine what that brings up when you're writing every morning. I'm so happy and grateful now that I make $250,000. And on some level, you're going, fucking hell, this isn't working. Like, this is not it. I am so far from this. And it could be easy to get disheartened. It could be, but I never did. I kept writing it. I kept writing it. In the second year of business, I'm still writing. I'm so happy and grateful now that I make $250,000, blah, 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 blah. Second year of business, I made $113,778, which, might I say, like 5x the year before. So happy with that. So stoked. That's incredible. I was very happy. I was very grateful for my past self for, doing all this stuff that Bob told me to do and for getting NLP training and all the things. But I'm still writing $250,000. To be honest, this was probably the point where it was becoming so deeply programmed that I stopped doing this journaling practice. And honestly, just in this last couple of weeks, I'm like, Breanna, get back to your journaling practice because this shit is wild. And I'll explain why in a moment. So it was about year 3. I stopped doing the journaling practice and I was just getting into the groove with my business. I was really doing the things. I was doing the aligned action that Bob would always talk about. And I had the vision, so I knew what I had to do to get closer to that vision. But I kind of just forgot about the whole $250,000 a year. Now, fast forward to this week, fast forward to it being my 4th year in business. I went to go check my Stripe account, and I don't actually do that very often. I don't really check. I'm not someone who just checks my bank account or like my overall business income very often. But it was coming up to my business birthday and I was like, this is interesting. So I went into my Stripe and I shit you not. Remember, 4 years I've been in business and I have just hit over $1 million in the 4 years, which is exactly $250,000 on average per year for those 4 years. That blows my fucking brain. And I never would have seen how it was going to play out because, like I said, the first year I made 17 grand. The second year I made 100. Then I just sort of forgot about it and I kept doing my thing. I just kept doing my business, taking the aligned action. I'd done the identity work, the mindset work, and I kept taking the aligned action. And it wasn't until I looked this year that I was like, holy shit, it actually happened. Not exactly as I thought it would, not in the most linear way, but it happened. And if I pulled out all my journals, me right now would be like, oh my God, it actually worked in this really crazy way. So I want to share with you a few lessons and a few takeaways so that you can implement this yourself, because it fucking works. Like, I am the embodiment of this. Hundreds of my clients will say to you it works. It just does. But here's the lessons. First of all, what this tells me and what this reinforces to me is the power of journaling. And when I say journaling, I mean writing with your hand. I mean writing old-fashioned style, not typing, writing. Writing is inviting, and there's a whole bunch of reasons that, again, I'm not going to bore you with. I'm going to do another episode on this because I think it's important you understand neurologically and psychologically why we should handwrite. But just know that writing is so much more powerful. And when you write the same thing again and again and again and again, it actually does etch into your subconscious. It becomes your focus, and you can't help but to move towards it. And it gives your mind and everything about you focus, right? So one, the power of journaling and just repeating things to yourself again and again and again and again. That's a huge lesson. And that's something, like I said, I'm even like, Breanna, back to your journaling, back to making this a daily practice, because it really does work. And the nuance to that is sometimes you do something again and again and again and again, and it just becomes who you are. You don't necessarily need the structure because you do it unconsciously. However, if you're moving towards a new goal, bring the journaling back in. And I will contradict myself here and say journal all the time anyway, because handwriting is just so much more powerful. So make a practice. That's the first thing. The second lesson from this is that it would have been so easy at the end of the first year and at the end of the second year to be like, this doesn't work, I'm giving up. I'm going back to my job. This isn't working. Manifestation doesn't work. The law of attraction doesn't work. Energy and all of that crap doesn't work. It would have been so easy to just throw my hands up and go, oh, it doesn't work. I'm just going to hustle. I'm going to forget about energetics. I'm going to forget about the fundamental laws of the universe. I'm going to forget about how the subconscious mind works. And I'm going to just rely on push. But there is a bit of magic that happens here. However, you've got to be someone who can stay persistent and consistent. Consistent in your daily practice, consistent in saying the same things, consistent in holding that vision, consistent, and you've got to be persistent. I didn't stop just because I didn't get the result on the timeline that I thought I would. I kept going, and I was persistent like a fucking dog with a bone. I really am like a dog with a bone, because to me, in my mind, it's not a matter of if, it's always a matter of when. It's not a matter of if, it's always a matter of when. And so you've got to be persistent even when it's not working. And that's something that I can say hand on heart, I have embodied for such a long time, even when I'm not getting the results I want, even when it's not falling in the timeline that I wanted it to. I just know it's a matter of when. If I do my part. And one part here is the energetic work, the emotional work, the journaling practice, the getting clear on your goals, the getting lit up by your goals. But the other part is the masculine part of the equation, the actual doing things. So for me, the reason I'm so strongly convicted that it's not a matter of if but when is because I trust myself to show up and take the aligned action. I don't just sit around and journal. I don't sit around and play with myself and play with energy. Because that's a whole technique that's out there, just, manifest to orgasms and all of this. And there is a lot of science behind that too. It's kind of cool. But I'm not just sitting around playing with myself. I'm not just sitting around journaling. I'm not just sitting under the moon crying and begging and asking for things. I'm not wishful thinking. I've got a vision. I've aligned my energy, and then I align my actions. That's the most important part. You've got to be taking the action. Did I make $1 million in 4 years because I wrote in my journal lots of times? No, but it was the thing that gave me purpose. It was the thing that gave me direction. It was the thing that gave me a help in decision-making, what aligns with where I'm going and what doesn't. It helped my subconscious mind to start to reprogram itself. And a little bit of magic here. Magic just fucking happens when you use this stuff. But It's not magic without your part. I do believe that the universe is conspiring with you. I do believe in the universe always collapsing timelines to move with you, but it's going to collapse timelines to the same extent that you move. You have to meet halfway. So even if you think of energy, the universe, whatever terminology you use, whatever it is that you use, think of it as a partner, a friend, a best friend who wants to see you win, who is going to do everything they can to meet you. But a relationship is 50-50. A relationship has two parts, and you need to meet that person in order to get the same out. So do your part, do the action. But the takeaway, the magic, the craziness is that when you journal the same thing using this prompt, which I'm going to leave you with, crazy things happen. And the last thing I want to say before I remind you of this prompt is that my mentor, the person that I often dedicate so much of my current life to, he said, because I was someone, and if you're like this, just I see you, I feel you, I understand. If you're somebody that's like, but how? It's so far away, I don't get it. How? And I was like, but how? I don't know how to have a business. I don't know how to have a podcast. I don't know this. I don't know that. How? He would always say, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll see how you can go further. You're never going to see how it all lands when you're looking ahead. It's only with hindsight that you can look back and see, oh, that's how it worked. So try not to get too caught up on the how. And one more piece of advice on that one, if you are somebody who does get a little bit caught up in the how, I encourage you to don't ask how, ask who. Ask who can show you, who has the strategies, the mindset, who has the results that can show you the shortcuts. So don't ask how, ask who. And if you don't know how to get all the way there, take one step. And in the words of my mentor, Bob, go as far as you can see. And when you get there, you'll see how you can go further. And so I want to wrap up this wicked manifestation story with a prompt for you to use and to repeat every day. Guys, it takes 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Get your journal out first thing in the morning and last thing before you go to sleep at night, and write down, I am so happy and grateful now that. And then write it. And if it's a money thing, make it specific. If it's a money thing, don't be vague. Get emotionally attached to the thing you're writing about. Write it again and again and again and again. And I swear, magic happens, but it won't probably happen how you think it will. And that's what makes it magical. If you knew exactly how life was going to plan out, it would be a very boring life, would it not? That's why we love surprises. That's why we love going on holidays. That's why we love adventure and spontaneity. We don't want to know how it pans out. So get aligned with your vision and start writing now. I am so happy and grateful now that, and just be astounded by the magic that the universe presents to you, because it will happen if you don't give up and if you take aligned action and you just keep going. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to hit like and maybe consider subscribing. This really, really helps to grow this podcast, and it is a massive mission of mine to get you incredible guests and to increase and up level all the production so that I can help you to create your dream life, to get the most out of yourself, the most out of the people that you serve. And so please hit subscribe now, and I will see you back here in the next video.